The views expressed in this podcast are our own and do not constitute endorsement by the Department of Defense, Department of the Air Force, or the U.S. government. Bring us her triumphs, her challenges, her legacy. Bring Us Women, a podcast brought to you by Isabella Horning and Allie Clark.
Ladies, grab a cold one and get ready to laugh, learn, and think.
Introducing the woman who does it all, Mo Barrett, Air Force Academy, class of 1993, C-27 pilot, commander, comedian, TEDx speaker, podcast host, DC tour guide, and partner and co-founder of a Maryland brewery.
Dang, what can't she do?
Mo, we are so glad that you could join us today on the Bring Us Women podcast.
Well, shoot, man. Allie, I'm going to answer your question. The question is to be a good podcast host. Podcast guest. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, the verdict's still out. We'll ask, we'll ask the universe after this.
Perfect. I look forward to the answer.
Well, Mo, I'm going to need you to start from the beginning before we can get to beer talk, which will be my personal favorite.
Okay.
But how did you first find yourself at the Academy?
I probably took a wrong turn. Actually, I say it was through a series of no's, like not the thing in between your eyes, but like I had a friend who her dad went to the Naval Academy and I went to visit the Naval Academy and I'm like, yeah, not for me. So no to that.
Both thing.
Yeah, no. And then I decided I was actually cutting school in high school and a teacher came around the corner. So I ducked into the Career Center and it was Naval Academy recruitment day. And I'd already said, no, I didn't want that. But the Naval Academy tape didn't work. So the guy put in an Air Force tape because he said the school was just like the Naval Academy.
But cooler.
And I'm like, and I looked at that. I'm like, I want that. So I ran down to my guidance counselor's office and I told him I was going to apply. His no was accompanied by a laugh of derision. Like, he's like, you're not going to get in. And he was right. I didn't get in the first time, but I got into not the prep school, capital T, but as Issa and I know, we got into little a prep school through the Falcon Foundation scholarship, I guess. And so I went to there and just kept saying, the Air Force Academy said no to me. The prep school said no to me. A prep school said yes. So I just kind of kept following it. And I think the more no's I heard, the more I wanted that thing that they were saying no to. So the short answer is just a whole series of no's and forcing them into yeses.
Well, yeah, just like you said, me and Issa can both definitely relate to that. I did go to the Air Force Academy prep school, but I'm glad that we all have that shared experience of perseverance and really trying to get into the academy.
Absolutely. Oh, you got into the capital T, the prep school.
Yes,
nice.
I did.
Yeah,
nice.
Kind of a big deal over there,
Yeah.
I guess, among the three of us. But I would say,
some of us take the 5-year track, and that's okay.
I would say, isn't that so crazy about how oftentimes it's just someone has to tell you no, or a bunch of people have to tell you no for you to be like, no, that's actually exactly what I want to do. Thank you.
Yeah, right. It's nice to be motivated by that, but I don't know that everybody is. I think we might be the bad audience to ask that question to, but I don't know if some people are demotivated by a no. I don't know. I just know the three of us are not.
Yeah, I guess that's something we'd have to ask, because I've been told no more times than I can count throughout my life. I mean, at some points too, I feel like that was my mom's favorite word to me. Like, no, don't do that. No, go do this.
I think not touching a hot stove is an acceptable no, but sometimes we got to figure that for ourselves too.
Well, going deeper into the Air Force Academy, what was your favorite memory from while you were at the Academy?
Come on, it's got to be Spirit missions. And I hope they still do them there. But to me, Spirit missions it's like the Mission Impossible thing. And the favorite mission, the favorite Spirit mission I ever did was like this whole class event, and everybody was divided, or not class, but in our squadron, but everybody was divided into teams. And the short version is we took our sophomore 3-degree bathrobes, soaked them in water, and hung them up in the air gardens, because at the time there were just trees out there, and so they froze. But the other part of the team, the end result was a class, or say a squadron patch floating in jello in the neighboring squadron's 3 degrees sinks. So that involved a hot water team, the cold ice water team, the patch insertion team. So like, there was this whole thing. And of course, it's the middle of the night. And of course, we almost got caught. So I was in the closet, figuratively and literally, but I was in the closet with a classmate. We were banging up on the hangers above us and everything like that. But just that, I don't know, there's something when you have that shared sense of fear and urgency, and it's kind of a false sense of urgency, but it's that, I don't know, that shared, again, it's a shared purpose and doing something you're not supposed to do. I think maybe we're motivated by the no again.
Exactly.
Common theme.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm learning that now. Okay.
No, I don't know about you, Allie, but I loved spirit missions as well at the academy. And too many to count, but, just like you said, the shared experience of breaking the rules or sneaking out after dark because, you were supposed to be locked in your room as a 4th degree. And I remember we decided it was a great idea to wrap my flight commander's entire room in Christmas wrapping paper before Christmas break. And I mean, every inch of the room, the walls, the bed, every uniform item hanging in his closet, every pen, everything. And so like that was a fun spirit mission.
Well, that sounds pretty challenging, bathrobes in the air garden. But besides that, what was the other hardest challenge that you faced as a cadet?
The hardest thing for me was coming back after spring break or any time that we left, not necessarily for a weekend, but if we left for a spring break or Christmas break or one of those breaks and had to come back, I just got that pit in my stomach. And I have classmates to this day who still say they feel that pit when they go back on campus for whatever reason. But I hated coming back because I felt like we had enough freedom to kind of get some distance and see that, it wasn't all that was cracked up at when you're all commiserating together. But then you go back home and you talk to your friends who are in a normal college drinking and like it's their job. And we're just like, what am I doing with my life? But I will say that that thing that was the most challenging for me, which was going back, was also the most, I guess, educational for me, because what I learned is I would pre-plan, and a bunch of us, we all had that pit in our stomach. We would all agree on Sunday, we'd look at our flight times and we would all agree to meet at, the A Hall, or whatever social thing it's called now, right? So wherever there was beer, and we would meet there and agree to meet there at a certain time. And I still dreaded going to the academy, but I knew I had something to look forward to and people who could understand that misery. That was the most challenging for me, was going back. But it was also it helped make me more self-aware of what I needed when I was kind of down in the dumps. And it was just other people and looking forward to that.
Yeah, I can 100% that long drive from Northgate back to your dorm room, and then taking your luggage up the stairs most of the time, because after the breaks, the elevators were all broken down.
Sure.
So I totally get that deep pit of despair, but also like the weird feeling too while you're like on Christmas break and you're like, I cannot wait to get out and like be a normal person. But then you're like, wow, I really miss all my friends, the same things that we do every day. And then that's just really that like affirmation of like, wow, I've made some really good friends, and like missing them even on Christmas break.
Right. And we also get this warped sense of what normal is, right? Because like our normal, like, wait, not everybody jumps out of a plane or solos a glider after their freshman year, or not everybody goes through SEER, or not everybody, like our sense of normal becomes very, very warped. And it's a good thing, but then you get that perspective and then you sort of miss it, but then you start getting back on campus like, oh yeah, I don't miss it as much. And like, okay, just got to get over that hump.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely why it's immensely freeing to go back to the academy as a active duty member or post being a cadet, because you know that you can leave at the end of the week. Right. Well, if you had one piece of advice for a cadet, what would you tell them?
My advice for somebody who is thinking about being a cadet is make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. My advice for people who are there, and I say this no matter what stage of life you're at, look at whatever shit you're going through, look at what it's going to be like in 5 years, right? So if you have a bad day or whatever, just look maybe 5 minutes into the future, 5 weeks into the future, 5 years in the future, and give yourself an honest assessment of what that thing that's killing you right now, if that's really worth bothering you. So I know that the academy right now is going through a lot of changes with the civilian and military instructors, and they're talking about taking away majors and all of this stuff. I don't know about you two, but I am not using the degree that I got from the academy. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying it's a thing. But what I rest my laurels on is that I got to get into the academy. And again, like you said, Allie, the 5-year plan, but I got in, I made it through, got some lifelong friends. So I, like, some people have reached out who are struggling with this whole, are we going to lose our major, that whole track? And I'm just like, look at it in 5 years from now. Once you've graduated, this stuff won't matter. You're all going to have the same degree, and we're all going to have a BS because we take so much math and science. But look forward 5 years or 5 whatever increments of time and see if it's really going to matter. Because that thing, that's just kind of pull your head up and look at the big picture and like, okay, this really doesn't matter. This is not that important in the big scheme of things. And I think the one thing, I know it's May is mental health awareness month. And I think the thing that I say is don't look for a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah.
So people that are like, that's it, I'm quitting. Okay. But that once you leave the academy, for whatever reason, it might be a good one or a bad one, but you've done something permanent that's pretty much irreversible. So make sure that problem is worth that permanent solution.
I think that's so valuable of a lesson because I feel like even, I don't know if Allie feels the same way as a young officer as well, but I feel like the academy, like you're in such of an Air Force bubble of like what the Air Force is prepping you for, what you're going to be expected of in the Air Force, that you get out and you start your job and you just, I mean, at least for me, I was like flabbergasted at all the other opportunities there are outside of the Air Force. And like, I'm only in year 3, but I'm, all the different agencies that you can work for, or other grads that have started businesses that want to hire other grads, or, now that you're active duty, you have tuition assistance or the GI Bill, and you can go at the 5-year mark and be like, I want to change my whole life upside down and go to law school or go to medical school, and all these opportunities that are afforded to you because, you just made it out of the academy and graduated from the academy, and not like, I feel like as cadets, we just are pigeonholed and we think like, oh my gosh, like I got this job. That's the only job I'm going to ever be able to do.
Right.
Definitely. Operationally speaking too, I think that like that same mindset, we're always in the moment and like this moment is so big. And what if I don't meet this demand or this mission? And it's easy to get pigeonholed in that, like you guys were mentioning. But I think it's important to mention that like at the end of the day, that mindset, like it's not that deep. Like we have been afforded such an awesome opportunity, no matter what branch you're in, no matter what service academy you attended, like you are set up and you're going to have a great career. And like, besides all of the accolades and tasks that you're required to do and things of that nature, the most important thing at the end of the day is that you're enjoying your experience and that you're leading people and caring about the people that you're around.
100%.
Which, talking about careers and AFSCs, what influenced you to put pilot number 1 on your dream sheet, Mo?
So have you ever heard those stories where like there's a young girl and she's laying on her back and she's on the grass and she's looking up into the sky and she sees this plane fly over and she thinks, someday I want to be flying that thing. I want to be a pilot. Have you heard those stories, like that? I wish that was my story because I don't have that background. Like I wish I had some cool thing like that, but it's not like I've always wanted to fly. Again, it was a series of opportunities. The door opened or the door kind of cracked or the door looked like it may be unlocked and I barged through. And so just like getting into the academy was through a series of no's. I think a lot of the opportunities I have had have been some doors that I saw open that I pushed open and worked hard to earn the right to walk through. So, and I was in that, it's probably in contrails now, this whole history of of the evolution of the military. But, it used to be if you were medically qualified and you went to the academy, almost like you had to go to pilot training, right? We were in the Air Force. That was the path. So we had about 1,000 people in our class and about 900 were medically qualified and about 900 wanted to go to pilot training. And the day before our 2-degree year, they called us in. They said, the CSAF has made some cuts. There will be 225 slots. And that was it. And it got ugly. So the people that did have those stories that, were laying on their back and have always wanted to fly since they were a kid or since they could talk, but they'd also gone to the academy with that dream, but with the work ethic of 2-0 and go. Well, all of a sudden, when we had 225 slots for 900 people, they were looking at your athletic GPA or whatever you call it, your MPA, your GPA. They were looking at everything. And so some of the people who had gone in with a 2-0 and go, it's a guaranteed thing, didn't make it into the 225, and I'd worked hard to not fail out. So I was lucky enough that I was still competitive and I got one of those slots. So, but I do wish I had one of those cool stories. I just don't.
Hey, I love the untraditional stories.
Yeah, well, that is me.
I don't know. I think the academy, like you said, they always push you to be pilots. And, you know, there was a brief moment in time where they almost got me, you know, and then, but then I wasn't med qualified. So then it all worked out. Yeah, that's...
Well, you know, it's not to go down this rabbit hole, but here we go. But even within every career field too, like Issa, you were talking about, you know, once we get into a career field and you lose sight of these other opportunities that are career field adjacent. But even within the pilot training career field, growing up, my brother was in the Air Force, and so he would send me all these promotional posters. There just weren't a lot of posters advertising the Air Force that had like a C-5 or C-130 on. It was always the sexy F-15 and the fighters and all that stuff. So I knew about the fighters. I didn't know about the heavies. So, of course, then when I got a pilot training slot, I thought that's what I wanted to fly, was one of the sexy planes, because that's what the posters all advertised. That's what everybody said, apparently, that I wanted to be. But even with that career field, and so then when it came to track select, like middle of pilot training, I didn't get into the fighter bomber track. I got into the heavy transport track. And I was a bitch for a couple weeks because I was so pissed off because, again, here was the standard. I was supposed to be a fighter pilot. I was supposed to want to be a fighter pilot. And I didn't meet that goal. And I was really, really pissy. But again, now that I look, I wish I'd had that skill set to look 5 years into the future. But now I'm glad I didn't, because the experiences I had in a crew plane, I'm definitely a team sport person and not a single seat sport person. So I'm glad that it was in a crew plane. I'm glad that it was in a heavy and a strategic airlift, and got to see a lot of places that I don't know that I would have if I'd been a fighter pilot. So it's looking at the trauma that you're in right now and just kind of looking at the big picture and saying, okay, this will be okay. The sun will rise tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times those no's or that closed door of not being able to be a fighter pilot, you know, opens those doors that you didn't even imagine for yourself. And
right.
I think that's important for people to hear, because even right now with all of the pilot training backlogs and all the different pipelines, I know that there's, you know, some T-38 classes that get to the end of their drops and there's only like 3 fighters in that class. Whereas, you know, traditionally all T-38 tracked, you know, should have gone fighters after that. But now they're getting, you know, heavies, and like with the promise that they might get a fighter after that. But I think, like, to your point, it's, you know, you might be upset, you might be heartbroken because you always saw your life ending up in this certain way. But at the end of the day, that heavy might open up so many more opportunities that you didn't even think of because you were so focused on that one fighter slot.
Yeah, well, and I think there's a good parallel in life like that, because I don't know about you, but my life has not gone like I predicted. And, you know, it's being able to, it's able to kind of pivot with that thing. Like, okay, I thought this is where I was going, and now I'm here, right? So I'm supposed to graduate from college, get married, 2.5 kids, and a Volvo and a white picket fence, and I have none of those things. But it's like, okay, what am I going to do with this, what I've been handed, and how am I going to make it good? People can play the victim and they can, you know, woe is me, but I don't want to hang out with those people. So it's the beer test, right? Who do you want to sit and have a beer with?
Absolutely.
It isn't those people.
Well, speaking of heavies, what was it like to be the first and only female C-27A pilot in the Air Force?
I thought it was a fat joke coming. Sorry. Speaking of heavies, and she's looking right at me, you guys.
That felt personal.
It did. Thank you for feeling that too for me, Allie. See, it's just like, I'm not going to win. To answer your question, it felt normal when I got there. So ahead of time, when I found out, you know, the Air Force is like, okay, you're going to be the first female C-27A pilot down there. I'm like, oh no. So I'm going to have all these comebacks. And I anticipated all of these things. Again, I anticipated the worst case. Like, here's all the stuff that's going to happen. They're going to pick on me for this. They're going to, all these things. I had some killer comebacks. I don't know if I still have them memorized, but I had killer comebacks. I think my favorite one was, yeah, it takes a penis to fly a plane, but it doesn't. But I never had to use them. I got down there and the guys were like, okay, so here, I mean, I kept waiting for that thing to happen and it never did. It just was, go down there. And this is the one thing I always say too, is be a good person, do your damn job, period, dot, full stop. That's it. And I went down there kind of anticipating it, but it never came. And I'm still good friends with the C-27 guys. In fact, unlike any other squadron I've been in, my our C-27 squadron, we still get together and have reunions. Like they just had one in Florida and we had one in Vegas last year. I mean, it's just, there's such a camaraderie, and it had nothing to do with gender or race or anything. So it was normal, but it was only normal when I got there because I was really, really bracing for something, and that something never happened. It was all good.
I'm really happy to hear that was your experience, because I know when we hear about a lot of women's stories from, the past and like their transition into their respective areas, especially being like the first of that, some of their stories were not as amazing as that one is to hear. So that sounds a very hopeful message, especially I know that there's still a lot of career fields, thinking like spec ops at the top of my head right now, that are still trying to, kind of cross that barrier and integrate more women into their field. So I think that sends a very hopeful message that for all those women out there.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a good point. But I think the other thing too is we can't go in expecting, like I certainly did not expect any special treatment. I expected kind of crap treatment, but I didn't expect any special treatment. And I think that's the other thing too is, again, along the lines of be a good person, do your damn job, is we can't be expected to be accommodated for. So there's that healthy balance of knowing and being aware that you are the first, or somehow you're different, but not expecting any accommodations because of that difference, right? So it's that balance. I'm not saying you treat people poorly, but you also have to do the work and meet destiny halfway and do your work to do your part, basically.
Absolutely. Well, I am curious though. I've never flown, so I want to know what the weirdest or wildest thing that's ever happened to you in the cockpit.
Oh God. So this isn't really it. Well, okay. So I'll tell you this story. So there was a huge typhoon in Paca, in Guam, took out the whole island, power and all this other stuff. So we were taking one of the C-5s from California to Guam via a spend overnight in Hickam. So we were taking this entire FEMA team, trucks, generators, blankets, water, blah, blah, blah. So we had the mission commander of FEMA. So I had the first leg from California to Hawaii. And we get into Hickam, and I pranged the landing. It was terrible. And when I say it was a terrible landing, the engineer asked me how many landings I wanted to log. The co-pilot made some smart-ass comment. The loadmaster in the back asked if he could be cleared off headset so we could reset all the oxygen masks. I'm saying it's so bad. The tower called our plane and said, "Are you guys okay?" I mean, it was bad.
Not the tower.
Yeah, it was bad. So, of course, I had to buy all the rounds of drinks that night, whatever. So the next day we go to Guam, and Guam's a tricky runway because it's got like a bowl. So it's a weird power management thing. So you have to carry power, then add power, then lose power. Anyway, it's really hard to land at, and it's really hard to land well at. I think it was just because it was the rotation, but my aircraft commander, the other pilot, did that landing. Not because of my landing at Hawaii, but because it was his turn. So he greases it all. It's a perfect landing. So I'm helping with the download, and I'm standing by the mission commander from FEMA, and we're just taking pictures and doing all this other stuff. The press is there, and he pulls me aside. He goes, "Hey, thank you so much for the ride and for just giving us a tour and everything." I said, "Absolutely." And he goes, "Hey, and great landing today." And I said, "Oh, yeah, thanks." And I'm thinking, I could take credit for this. Like, I said, but I can't. I can't take credit for that. That was actually my aircraft commander. And the mission commander, he nudges me and he's like, "Oh, was he trying to redeem himself from yesterday?" I'm like, no, that was me. And I'm like, it's a bad landing when tower calls you, but it's a really bad landing when the passengers are complaining to you. I'm like, yeah, no, that was mine. But it was a quick lesson in accepting responsibility and giving credit where credit was due. But that was one. It's like all those things. Like, I've been through some really bad turbulence. I've been in some really non-democratic situations where I said, just so it was on the cockpit voice recorder, I said, "I know we're not taking a vote and this is not a democracy, but I would not want to take off right now." And our aircraft commander was like, "Noted." Pushes the power off. We took it to this thunderstorm. But yeah, I just like that one just because I think there's a lot of lessons about just accepting responsibility, buying the drinks when you're, when you deserve to buy the drinks, and giving credit where credit is due.
I love that.
Well, it's kind of on the same line of giving advice and learning lessons, do you have any other advice for those who are just starting out their military careers?
I still live by be a good person, do your damn job. I don't know if you guys know, but my wife is gay, and we were both in the Air Force, both retired colonels, and we both entered the military when it was illegal. Like, you got asked, do you have any problems with homosexuality? To which I said no, because I was very good at it. But I consider that my first lie in the Air Force. And then Don't Ask, Don't Tell came, and then Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed. But we kind of served through that whole iteration to where now she retired with my last name. But we never had any witch hunts. We never had any situations where we were, I think people knew. I mean, I don't know that I am a flaming heterosexual appearance or anything. So but what I always said was, we just wanted to be good people and we wanted to be good at our job. So be a good person, do your damn job. And I think the rest of the stuff will take care of itself. And then again, what I said earlier about whatever mess you're in, and that goes for the good stuff too. When you're in the good stuff, I mean, celebrate it, or if it's a bad thing, learn from it, but also pull your head out and look 5 years into the future and know that that thing happened. And what did you do with that thing that happened, good or bad, is kind of take the time to reflect, because I think that's one thing we don't get a lot of time to do, is kind of reflect on things, both good and bad. So my advice is be a good person, do your damn job, and pull your head out.
I love that.
I feel like that should go on a t-shirt.
Oh, let's go. I will buy it.
Or a koozie, either or.
Or a thong, whatever. Too far? Yep, too far.
Oh my gosh. Me and Issa have had a lot of conversations about that, about how your actions speak volumes. And specifically, wanting to be like the type of leader who like can meet our words with our actions. And so that I think that really resonates for both of us, honestly.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys are having those conversations. I'm glad that you take the time to reflect on leadership, because I think that's a big element of this podcast too, is taking the time to learn from each other and reflect on it. So I like that you're having those conversations. That's cool.
Definitely. I love that I've been able to find friends in the military that kind of have that same line of thinking with myself and want to see that personal development, especially as young officers. I think that's important to like actively be thinking about those things. So
and also from what I know of Issa, she is a great mentor. I know a lot of people that look up to her, and I've gotten to meet some of her mentees, and they just think the world of her. So, and I think the world of you too, Allie. I just have known Issa longer, but
to add on to that, you probably don't know this, Mo, but Issa was actually my mentor. So that's how she wrote me into doing this with her.
Perfect. Like a good mentor should.
She reached out and I was like, absolutely. But no, I'm really, really grateful to have met her. And I think she definitely shaped my academy career a lot as far as like the goals I set for myself and stuff. She's covering her face.
I can see that. Yeah.
I'm talking about her right now.
I think we should keep talking about her then.
I think we should keep this going.
Yeah, let's wax poetic about all the greatness that is.
No. This is the Mo Barrett episode.
Well, Mo, who was your biggest role model while you were in the military?
I had a lot, but I was kind of reflecting on this, getting ready for this. And this is the weirdest thing, but in 2016, was it 2016? 2006? It had to be 2006 because my dad was still alive. See, there you go. That's how old I am. Like, oh, my dad was still alive. So much. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So it was in 2006 when the Air Force Memorial was dedicated, and I volunteered. It was a Saturday. You need an Oprah bullet, right? So, but honestly, I just wanted a front seat at the dedication. So I went and I was just a greeter, and I was seating people, and the president was there. It was really cool, but I was just there because I wanted to see the dedication. And I think she was a 2-star at the time, 2 or 3-star, but Lieutenant General or Major General Michelle Johnson. And I think she was a superintendent at one point. But she was one of the DVs there, front row seat, right by the president, whatever. But she came over because all of us were kind of standing. I think we were majors at the time. But she came over, had to make a concerted. It wasn't like she was walking past us. She had to come over to us. And she looked us on the eye and hand on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you guys, thank you for being here." And I know she knew that we were probably either voluntold or doing it for an Oprah bullet. But the fact that she came out of her way and saw and recognized and acknowledged and talked to people who are normally in the shadows and behind the scenes, that is a very, very formative memory to me. And I remember thinking, I don't know her from Eve, but that was the coolest ass shit she could have done, was to come over and make us visible to her. And I'm like, that's how I want to treat people. So That was a really big mentoring moment for me.
I think that speaks volumes because oftentimes I think people think they need to do these like grand gestures or well thought out actions in order to like show that they're a great leader or show that they're a great officer. But really all it takes is a small little action that took her 5 seconds to do. Right. And, you know, so many of us could do so many more of those little actions every single day to people around us because that's what matters most to people, not the grand gesture that we know was probably fabricated because they're planning it for their bullet on their performance report.
I thanked 5 majors. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. And I think the other thing too is I don't know that she knows the impact she made. And I would love the opportunity. And so that was one thing. I won't mention names, Issa, but the one cadet that we have in common right now, and she just, again, really, really is grateful to you. And I said, have you told her that? She's like, yeah, I tell her all the time. She gets embarrassed. And I said, now I can see it, right? But make sure that we tell the people that we look up to them because they don't know. If I could ever run into Michelle Johnson, I would tell her that story.
Well, I would say that we would love to have her on the Bring Us Women podcast. So
let's do it.
Maybe
let's make it happen.
Well, I kind of, not to circle back, but I am kind of interested because I don't know a lot about your wife, but I'm curious to know how you met each other.
I think it's where every Air Force person meets their Air Force spouse at Air University.
Okay, perfect. So I still have time.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. SOS, ABC, ACSC, No, we were at Air Command and Staff College. And again, you got to do the dance and stuff because it was don't ask, don't tell. So, you know, she had a roommate and I had a roommate and then we became roommates. But so I organized this Habitat for Humanity women builds. It was all women. And I was talking to Jen. We were in the same division, so we were down the hall from each other. And so I was like, I was coming up with the stupidest questions I could ask. I'm like, do I have to bring a hammer? Like, I know that they give you tools, but you know, like which end of the screwdriver do I? Not that stupid, but I was just, you know, I was just asking just for time to talk to her. She had no idea I existed. So then, because we were leaving from Montgomery, we were going down to Mobile. This is after Hurricane Katrina. We had to leave at like 5 a.m. And so I said, this is perfect because I'm thinking long game. I'm a strategic thinker, so I'm thinking 5 a.m. If it was me, if I was interested and I was Jen, you know, if the roles were reversed, I would get there early, right? I would get there a little bit early to have some one-on-one time. So I'm preparing for this likely outcome because I think she's interested. I'm pretty sure. I don't want to be cocky, but whatever. So I get up early. I do not get up early for anything, but for this, I got up early. Everyone's going to show up at my house at 5 o'clock. I'm anticipating 4:45. This cute blonde is going to come to my door. So I get up early. I do my hair. I look good. Not like now, but I lit candles. I had Melissa Etheridge playing, you know, like all the symbols, right? All the symbols.
The mood was set.
It was perfect. 4:45. Somebody knocks on the door. I'm like, it's go time. I'm like getting all pumped up, you know, open the door. It's not Jen, it's Carol Walters. And I forgot that I'm organizing a build of Air Force 04s who are all type A chicks. And Carol Walters was early. And then 5 minutes later, Jen shows up. And I'm like, so she goes, oh, you must be an early bird. You got candles lit. I'm like blowing them all out. I'm like, yeah, Carol, you're straight. I'm not interested. So. But in the end, got the girl. So
in the end, it worked out.
For me, I don't know if
Air Force love story.
Falcon love. Yeah. So
that's cool. Well, during your career, I know you guys probably worked different jobs. You were command, it sounds like, at the same time. What were some of the challenges that you kind of saw with that?
I think the challenge, there were more opportunities and lessons and good stuff that came out of it. But the challenges were, we were both trying to navigate this career, and it's hard to do the dual spouse or the dual, even especially when we were married, you know, like they don't have dual join friend rules in the Air Force. So there was a lot of, she was in England, I was in DC, she came back to DC, I went to Rhode Island, she went down to Florida, I went to Germany, you know, so a lot of that. I think probably the first 12 years of our time together, we probably spent 7 years apart, which is probably why we lasted 12 years. I don't know. But what we did learn is, and again, kind of reflecting back to at the academy, we would make sure that we had another time that we're going to meet together. So like if we're meeting at Easter or whatever, we made sure we had another, even if it was another quarter out, we knew that we had the next time we were meeting. We made sure that we knew when the next time was. And I think that made the time apart in between more manageable. But I think the benefit was we could come home and I had, just like you guys have each other to bounce leadership and mentorship things off, we could talk about command struggles or different, just like leadership stuff. We could talk about that over dinner table. It's not very good dinner conversation for anybody who's not interested, but like we were able to bounce ideas off each other, and she is a completely different thinker than I am. And so it was a neat way to kind of bounce ideas off and talk about leadership and mentorship and mentor each other in that way too. But, like I said, the challenges were not being stationed together, but the opportunity to go, okay, let's just have a goal setting. We know we're going to meet again, and let's have the opportunity to brainstorm and make it work.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think a lot of other viewers can. I'm personally going through long distance with my marriage right now. And so it was a loaded question. I wanted advice for myself. I'll be selfish here. But
okay. I'll give you some different advice. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I think it was helpful because that's kind of been what I've been trying to figure out too is, like he's a different AFSC. He's a pilot. I'm Intel. And so a lot of that stuff too, it's been a little difficult because I'm like learning all this stuff and they're like, it's top secret. You can't tell anyone. And he's like, how was your day? And I'm like, I can't tell you anything.
It was fine.
Yeah, it was good.
Yep, that's
like, so we're kind of navigating that, but, trying to plan those times of the month that we like set aside for each other.
Yeah.
And that's difficult when you're busy, and I'm sure you do everything. So, trying to be involved like with other things, but also making sure that I stay on track with my marriage and keep it fresh and fun and lively.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. One of the analogies when I speak, I use is I have these little metal buckets that I probably got from Temu that are going to cost me 15 times as much now. But I have these little buckets, and I visualize every day, every role that you have is a bucket, right? So you have a student bucket, podcast host bucket, friend bucket, wife bucket. Every role has a bucket. And every morning you wake up, you get 24 ounces of water. You can see how this metaphor is going to work, right? And I see a lot of people that are neglecting certain buckets that are going dry. And there's some people that do the peanut butter spread and they pour just a little bit and they half-ass every bucket. And then there's some people who are taking one bucket and they're pouring more than that bucket can hold. And they're working, like, why are you working so much? Like, work's not going to appreciate you. Just the water is a waste of your time. But I always look at my life because, like, right now my mom has dementia. So I'm not just a daughter. Now I'm a caregiver. And that bucket, I have another bucket for that, right? So my mom bucket is now a mom and a caregiver bucket, or my daughter bucket, I guess.
Yeah.
But, it's consciously being aware of, there's times when Jen and I may be out at a date, on a dinner date, and something happens with my mom, which means I have to take water from my wife bucket and pour it into my mom bucket. And it's always juggling that, but I think if we're conscious and we're deliberate about that, that matters too, because then again, we're not just half-assing everything, and we're not pouring into something that's just overflowing and it's a waste of our time because we're not going to get that return. So it's making sure you'd make time for him or for your friend or all the different things in your life. It's where do you want to spend your time and how do you want to be invested, and make sure when you're in that bucket, you're in it, right? You're not just texting and like all those other things. I think that's one thing that drives me nuts is people, on their phone or like, just put on Do Not Disturb or put it face down. Let's just have a conversation. 5 minutes. We're good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that's great advice for anyone and everyone, even, people not married, especially when you graduate from college or the academy and you start your career, you're like so hyper-focused on your career that you forget that, you have that friend bucket because it's not as convenient because you don't live with all your friends anymore, or you don't live with your spouse, you don't live with your family or whatever the case may be. And so it's really easy to hyper-focus on one bucket and neglect the rest. Whereas, like you said, you can't do that if that bucket isn't going to give you that return that you really crave as a human being.
Yeah. And again, it's just pull your head out, look back 5 years, like you've busted your ass, you've worked, and now you're alone because you've isolated yourself from all your support network and all the fun stuff. And as much as I love the Air Force, the day I left, probably the morning I left, somebody was in there doing my job. it's a little bit thankless with the memories and stuff like that, which is fine. It's just the way it is. But
Well, speaking about your time in the Air Force and kind of wrapping it up, what was the most fulfilling thing that you were able to do throughout your career?
thing with people, I think I was a bit of an anomaly. I don't know whatever my Enneagram or Myers-Briggs type is, but I was the kind that they're like, the military runs people like you out of the military. I'm like, I did. I just did it in 25 years. But anytime that I could bring humor into work, that was a good day for me. Like just practical jokes, but not like when the engine's on fire, but just things like one of my favorite ones. I was stationed in Stuttgart. I was a det commander, and we were in this building that was a multi-use, Army, Special Ops, us, Navy. It was just everybody was in there, but there were 4 doors on the building, 1 on each end and 2 on the front on the long end. So on April Fool's Day, which is a national holiday for me, I went in early because, again, there's very few things I'll get up early for. A cute girl and apparently a prank. But I went up and I put a sign on each door that said, door broken, use other door. So on the 2 ends of the building, it said, door broken, use other door. And I had arrows pointing to the, around the building. And on the front door, the front 2 doors, it said door broken, use other door, and it's pointing to the left. And on the left door, it said door broken, use other door, and it's pointing to the right. I don't know why I got blamed for this, but I'm happy, whatever. But all day, people came down to me and said, do you know how long it took me to get in the building? I'm like, no. They're like, 15 minutes, because I kept circling the building. I'm like, well, that's on you. Again, it's those pattern interrupts. So anytime I had a chance to use humor to do a pattern interrupt, just to break somebody out of their routine, that was a good day. So I have a lot of stories like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just love how they just knew it was you. They didn't even go in the else's office. They're like, there could only be one.
Right? That's rude. That's just rude.
Well, it makes sense that you're good at comedy in the workplace, and you do some comedy in your free time, I understand.
A little bit.
I guess I'm gonna put you on the spot then. What is your go-to joke as a comedian?
Clean or dirty?
Surprise us.
Okay. I was at a bar the other night, and I'm sitting there. It's just the bartender and me. I'm sitting there by myself. I'm not promoting drinking alone. I'm just saying. And I hear, out of nowhere, I hear this, nice shoes. Look around. Wasn't the bartender. I'm like, it's weird. Sit there. Another sip drinks. Great blouse. I'm like, what is happening here? Still not the bartender. I'm like, whatever. And he goes, cool hat. I'm like, what is happening? I finally asked the bartender, I'm like, what is going on? What is that? He goes, oh, it's the peanuts. They're complimentary. So stupid. Come on now. I keep a note of just jokes and puns, and just that whenever I'm speaking, I always have those open just in case.
I love that.
Well, speaking of one of your other many side quests that you've done post being in the Air Force, can you tell us a little bit about your book, Pardon My Quirk? What story absolutely had to be told no matter what?
The first one, I believe, is about my parents and how they met at Sears. And the reason it's important, I won't go into it, but the reason it's important is because it talks about the difference of perspective. And I think when you have an incident, let's say there's 2 people involved in an incident. Person A has a perspective about that incident. Person B has a perspective. And anybody who watches, we'll call them collectively person C, has a perspective because they view that interaction through their own experiences and their own lenses. And the bottom line is my dad explains how he and my mom met, and my mom explains it, and they're completely, vastly different stories. Same exact facts, but told in completely different ways. And number one, it taught me the power of storytelling and how to make it colorful, which my dad did, and the things not to do, which is put people to sleep, which is what my mom's did. But again, it's just the perspective of 2 people can look at the same event completely differently, and so can anybody else who's witnessing that, and to be cognizant of that so that you can, all the facts are there, but try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and see what that incident looks like from their perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's huge. My husband's family is from Cameroon. And so lately we've been having conversations about, as I've been getting to know them, about how things are just, perspectives are so different, especially when there's different cultural backgrounds, and all these effects that come to play. and I love it. Like the diversity that we're seeing in our squadrons and our workplaces now is really awesome to see. But like as such, we all have very different lenses that we view our lives in. So always like remembering like not jump to conclusions. Like we have this like immediate thought, like they meant this by that.
Yep.
And that could have entirely not been their intent.
Right.
So I feel like that is like one of the key things to like not taking things personally in the workplace and not letting little gripes and everything get to you, is just going in with that mindset that like others view things differently.
Yeah. Well, and the communication aspect of that too. But I mean, what's that whole joke about? It's a military joke about securing the building and the Marines will take down the building and the Air Force will get a contract or something. But even within our own military world, we have these different perspectives of secure the building means different things to different people in the military. And we're all in the same career field, military, right? So it's again, it's communication, it's perspective, and it's just being self-aware, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, next on the list of the many things that the wonderful Mo Barrett does, DC tour guide.
Yes.
We want to know, what are the 3 must-see stops when anyone is visiting DC?
Lincoln, World War II, and the Arlington National Cemetery, specifically the changing of the guard at the tomb.
That is cool. Issa, have you seen that since you've been there?
I would say since moving to DC, I've been a pretty bad tourist.
Let's go, Issa.
I haven't seen much, but I will.
Hey, your parents' dog has seen a lot.
My parents' dog has seen more of DC than I have, if I'm being honest. Because I was working and he was going on a DC tour. It was kind of crazy. But I will say I do love Lincoln as well. Lincoln's my favorite monument out of all the ones in DC because of the kind of leadership that Lincoln had and that I emulate or try to emulate. But Lincoln's where I actually want to do my promotion ceremony next year.
Oh,
so
that's a
feel
great
like that'd be
idea.
really cool.
That's a great idea. Yeah, the thing about Lincoln is that it's like I take people to the White House, and more often than not, people say it looks smaller than they expected, and it looks smaller than they saw on TV. So in that, nobody says that the Lincoln is as massive and majestic, and just everything that he stood for, everything that our country stands for, it is that impressive. It truly is monumental, and just all the symbology that's there. And the Arlington Memorial Bridge connects Lincoln to Arlington National Cemetery because he was a connector. And I mean, just all the symbolism that's, I love that kind of stuff. And if I don't find any, I'll just make some up, but I love the symbology of stuff.
Cool. I added all of them to my list.
Yeah. Come out. Let me know when you come out. We'll go out.
Well, moving into what we've been really wanting to get to on this podcast is probably one of the coolest, most unique things that you've done post the Air Force, which is becoming a part owner and co-founder of a brewery here in Maryland.
Yep.
Can you tell us how you got into that?
Again, it was a door. Somebody knocked on the door for this one. It was a friend's partner who lived on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, but was going to school in Falls Church and needed to rent a room during the week because that's where the class was. So Jen and I were like, we got plenty of space. We love people. So Nikki Center came over and rented a room for us during the week, and we would have dinner together and we would just hang out, and come to find out she was a home brewer, and then we stayed friends. And then her class was over. She moved, back full time to the Eastern Shore, and we just stayed in touch. And Jen and I are fortunate that, dual income, no kids. We are fortunate to have fiscal resources that we can help invest in people that we believe in and that we believe will be successful. And Nikki was one of those people, because she says, we're like, what do you really want to do? And she says, well, I really want to open a brewery, like a brick and mortar actual brewery. And she had she like, you could see the vision, you could see her passion, and you knew it wasn't short-lived. It was a long game thing. We gave her money to get the brewery up and running. And Issa's been there. So Allie, when you come out for your DC tour, we'll go out there too. But Nikki, the thing I like about the brewery is it's called Ten Eyck, which was her father's name. It's a Dutch name, and it means under the oak. So there's a very strong wood theme. But she made the brewery so it was a place of community and connection. Like, she wanted a place for people to come. And it has become that. And it's just been a really neat, that sense of community and connection has been really important to me. And that's what Nikki wanted, and that's what she's created. So, and her beers are good. I mean, Issa can vouch for some of them, but it's just, she has a good product. She has a good message, and I'm just really, really grateful. I'm really, really proud of her, what she's put together. But for Jen, it's a chance for Jen to be part of something bigger than herself, because now that we're not in the Air Force anymore and I have my speaking and emceeing career, yeah. I'm really grateful for Jen. Jen goes and she cleans kegs or she does manual labor or whatever it is. But yeah.
It's super cool. Well, I cannot wait to come do a taste test.
All right.
Do you have a signature beer that's your favorite?
We have a couple like flagships. There's a Stealing Fire, which is really nice like Pilsner. And we have a Tmave Pivo. It's a Czech lager, so it's a little bit dark, but actually we're 1/3 in the world for that style of beer.
Wow.
So little, I don't know. And then they have a rotating stuff. So I think Chesapeake Lager, Stealing Fire, Taco Cat is a nice, easy drinking one. And then they have this pie series. I don't know. They're sour ales. How do you describe the pies, Issa?
Honestly, unlike anything you'd ever honestly have, because I feel like other breweries you go to, there's like very just like a traditional sour, or like it might be a little bit fruity, but like it stays in its lane of like that's just what a sour is. But the pies are like the berry cheesecake pie one, where you can taste the cheesecake, the berries, and the graham cracker at the very end, is crazy.
Yeah.
And then it's it's not similar to the sangria sour, which is my favorite one.
Oh, you've got the Mamacita.
And it's like still drastically different than the Beetlejuice one and, the Peep one that they had for Easter. So it's just super cool that all of these sours like are able to have these really distinct notes and flavors. And
yeah, they are amazing. I don't know how they do it, but yeah, like that berry cheesecake, when you drink it, like, okay, I can smell like some cream, and I taste the cheesecake. Like, oh my God, there's a there's a graham cracker. It's so bizarre. It's like, what is happening? But it's really good.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, IPAs, hazy IPAs, all the things. So yeah.
Well, if you had to choose a beer for our podcast, what kind of beer would you suggest?
I would choose probably this, something that's easy to drink that everybody can, like not a specialty beer, like Stealing Fire or Taco Cat. I like Stealing Fire because I think the symbology of maybe borrowing fire, right? Not stealing, because that's bad. But I would choose a beer that's easy drinking because it's something that we can connect over and sip over and not exclude anybody, but something that everybody could sip on. So Stealing Fire or Taco Cat.
Well, we'll have to get Allie out here and everyone else to try the brewery, because I'm a huge fan of it. I like to refer to it as my pilgrimage when I head out there to pick up some beers.
We'll do something for the Air Force Navy game, because I think it's at Navy this year.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, Mo, we're rounding up our interview and we've arrived at the final question. And this question is one that we're going to ask all our guests because we want to, hear their take on it and be able to compare different women throughout different academies, different periods of time, etc. So our final question really gets at what this podcast is all about, which is finding out your legacy. So to tell us to wrap up your episode, what do you want your legacy to be?
I actually thought about this a long, long, long time ago. And I was probably trying to stay awake during a meeting when I wrote this down. The legacy is that I loved people well. And loved is, I don't mean it in a sexual term. Some people I do, but that I love people well, that I took care of people, whether it's an audience, whether it's a friend, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's a stranger, but that I love them well. That's the legacy I want to keep.
I love that.
That's it. Simple.
Simple and easy, but effective and powerful.
I really love what you said about your legacy, because I think it's something that should be simple. It should be simple. True. It's oftentimes not simple because we're caught up in a lot of worldly things. Like, we want our legacy to be this amount of money that we can leave to whatever, or this company that we built, or these amount of houses that we own. Whereas having something as just pure and simple as being known for loving your neighbors, loving everyone around you, like, I think that's truly what we all should be, striving for. But
you can't steal it. That's mine. Get your own.
Dang, now we got to go back to the drawing board.
Yes, you do.
Well, Mo, thank you for joining us on the Bring Us Women podcast. I hope our listeners loved laughing, learning, and thinking along with us today as we shone a light on your incredible journey, both in the Air Force and then throughout all the different endeavors that you've had outside of it. For more bonus content on our interview today, check out our Instagram. But until next time, be bold, keep leading, and we can't wait to bring you the next woman. The views expressed in this podcast are our own and do not constitute endorsement by the Department of Defense, Department of the Air Force, or the U.S. government.